Hi there, and welcome to the Skylight Books author reading series. If you'd like to learn more about us and our many upcoming author events, please visit skylightbooks.com, where you can browse our inventory, buy books, and join our Friends with Benefits Club. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. To speak to a real live bookseller like me, please call 323-660-1175. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
So in addition to having Emily here, we're so very happy to have Ivy Pochoda here also. She is, applaud, yes. She's a big deal. She's a big deal. She wrote the novels Wonder Valley and Visitation Street. So please welcome Emily and Ivy.
Oh my God! Holy shit! This is
okay.
crazy.
I get to talk first. So it's not really. This is the first for me. I've been here a million times. I've done tons of in-conversations, but this is the first time a student of mine has published a novel to so much acclaim. I have known Emily since she was 23 years old and came to my writing workshop. I think one of the first ones I taught in my loft downtown.
First writing class I ever took.
And, I teach all the time, and I can tell you that not a lot of novels come out of my workshops, and I don't think that's a reflection on me as a teacher.
False.
So it is pretty awesome to be here tonight, and I don't get nervous, but I'm kind of nervous because all your parents' friends are here, and they seem kind of smart, and, your friends are super cool. But this is a really big moment for me as a somewhat mature adult, and I'm so proud of you. And I was hoping we could start by you reading some of this book, and then I will ask you some questions, but mostly I'll let them ask you questions because they probably have more than I do.
I would love that. And can I say, a little bit closer. Can I say also that this book actually came out of a short story that Ivy was the first one to read.
We read in that cafe over there.
In the cafe around the corner, where Uncle Joe's used to be. And she was like, there's too much going on here.
You took my first question. Now I'm going to have to rethink this whole
I'm
talk.
sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, so blame her is what I'm saying. And so, I'm going to read from my book. This is a section a little bit, and so sorry for any spoilers, but I think you'll survive. Okay. In the morning when I wake up, I do my exercises, sure that Max will be back at any moment, maybe with Rosanna, ready to talk. I want to show them that I'm serious, that I'm working hard. I'm ready. I run wind sprints back and forth across the worn rug. I do my makeup, wiping it off and starting over again and again until it's flawless. I'm too nervous to read. I sit on the couch, waiting for Max and Rosanna for at least a full hour, trying my best not to move. I want them to find me perfect. I do my planks, I tan, I make espresso in a metal pot on the small stove. In the afternoon, I run more wind sprints. I go to the kitchen and take inventory. I have half a head of celery, 3 slightly floppy carrots, 2 small jars of chia seed flax, and a packet of dried seaweed. I remember an article where Rosanna discussed how to cook with chia seeds. She stands beside me in the kitchen, her voice an encouraging chirp. It feels so indulgent, but it's great for you. They're hydrating, super high in vitamins, fiber, and all kinds of good stuff. Definitely one of my go-to healthy snacks. I measure out a tablespoon of seeds and leave them to soak until they swell with liquid, a sticky mass of black and gray goop. It is one of the most unpleasant things I've ever forced down my throat. Viscous, slimy, tasteless. I drink it with a series of short and painful gulps and smile like she smiles in the pictures. I see her there beside me, smiling back. So simple and so good, I say to the empty room. The sky goes dark, and I give up on Rosanna. Still, I wait for Max. Still, he doesn't come. I run out of food on the 3rd day and decide to try the door. Maybe Max isn't planning on coming back at all. Maybe he's abandoning me here, like an unruly animal left on the side of the highway. Before I leave, I go through Rosanna's handbags. There are wallets in some of them, gift certificates, memberships, passes, unactivated platinum cards, crumpled handfuls of cash in the pockets of the coats softened by her sweat. I put all the money I can find in a small leather clutch and dress myself in Rosanna's most ordinary-looking clothes. Maybe I can find her house somehow, go to her directly, plead my case. I stand behind the door for a long time, getting my nerve up. I know I'm already close to the edge. If Max discovers that I have left without his permission, even for a minute, even to just get food, fully intending to come back, this will all be over for me. My contract will be terminated. I will be sent somewhere far away. I will never meet Rosanna. I will never see Max again. I rest my hand on the wood, feeling it warm and grow slick beneath my palm, weighing the 2 paths in my head. I think of Rosanna, how disappointed she will be at me and Max for failing her, how angry she will be that I let her down. I think of how much progress I've already made, of my future self, my beautiful self, how I will get another face after this that belongs to me alone. Not Rosanna's face, but a new face, a dream face, even more beautiful, more perfect than Rosanna could ever be, because it will be constructed from the purity of thought. It's worth it, I tell myself. It has to be. This is a test. Max is testing me. And if I open the door, which I am sure is unlocked this time, I will fail. If I want to stay, I will have to prove my consistency to him. I will have to wait. I take one breath, another. I picture Rosanna's smiling face, her standing in front of me, my mirror. I let my hand fall from the door. I take the money out of the clutch and redistribute it through the apartment, hidden underneath the small refrigerator, stuffed into the pillowcases, rolled up and tucked deep into a jar of kosher salt, just in case. I know what Max is capable of now, the depths of his neglect. After that, there's only black coffee and water until the sun sets. I should stay still, conserve my energy. It seems important that I still do my exercises, although every movement makes my body feel like it's about to break into a million tiny pieces. I get through a set. I move slowly. My makeup is slightly less than perfect. I have to force myself to wipe it off and start again. I am so tired, but I am here. When Rosanna comes back, I want her to see my devotion. I picture the way her face will light up seeing me, that horrible blank sadness gone. At night, I crumble half a chicken bouillon cube I discovered tucked away in the back of the pantry into a cup of hot water, a trick from my foster care days to keep the hunger pangs at bay. It works. I sleep. It is 4 days until I see Max again. 4 times the parrots fly noisily out of the courtyard in the morning. 4 times they return at night. It is sort of a relief that I can still do this, that there is still a way for me to hold on to and calculate time, to keep it from slipping past me in an undifferentiated stream. So I count, I wait. On the 4th day, my patience is rewarded. Max comes alone, carrying a gold takeout bag. It is noon, and I am sitting on the couch in my close-to-perfect makeup, hands folded in my lap. I have not consumed a single bite of solid food for almost 2 days now. I am shaking, I think from the coffee. When I hear the door open, I don't turn my head. I am determined not to move, not even to breathe too loudly. Everything is normal, I think. Everything is fine. Max goes into the kitchen and unpacks the bag, placing tiny dishes on a wooden tray. There is wild mushroom soup, lobster ceviche, crispy Brussels sprouts and black cod, spicy tuna hand rolls, a tiny box with a little round cake and a scoop of melting ice cream tucked inside, just like a ring. All Rosanna's favorites. She must have picked them out just for me. A way of saying sorry for everything she's put me through. From the corner of my eye, I watch him, my mouth watering. I want everything so badly. He brings the tray and sets it on the table. I do not move until he tells me to. Here, he says, an embarrassed tenderness in his voice. Eat. I thought you might want something special. I got this just for you. Your favorite. All your favorite things. We, I think. I force myself to eat slowly, as if he's never left, as if I'm not hungry at all. This is just another meal. Everything is fine. I am in control, and I want him to see that. I even leave a few scraps behind, although I want so badly to reach in my fingers and wipe the bowl clean, lick out every last dab of the sauce. It is almost too much. I feel sick, afraid that I will vomit the over-rich meal back up, betray the frailty of my body. When I finish, he clears away the plates, and as he passes, lightly strokes the back of my head. I'm sorry, I say, not looking at him. I look out towards the window where the sun is shining bright, almost too bright to look at directly, thinking of the distance to the street. I can hear the cars passing, life going on outside without me, without Rosanna, and I know what I have to do. Max, I'm so sorry, I say. Good, he says. I'll do it, I say. A silence. He says nothing, just keeps stroking my hair, his eyes wandering vague around the dirty corners of the room. It's too late, I think. He's here to tell me the bad news. It's over. Rosanna's lost her faith in me. Please, I say. I know I was wrong. I know it's what she wants now. I'll do anything she wants me to do. I trust you, Max. I'll do anything you say. Max puts his arms around my shoulders and squeezes me lightly, paternally, giving my back a little pat. In his arms I can feel how fragile my body is, even after just a few days of deprivation. My bones seem to float loose. I picture them floating in the bloody quiet inside. I picture the doctor slipping his fingers beneath my skin, as easy as dipping a bucket into the dark water of a well, rearranging me until I am perfect, building my body like carving a statue, pulling beauty from a flawed stone. I'm sorry too, Max says. I want so badly to believe him. A doctor comes to the house in street clothes. He's the first person I've seen in months. 2 months, maybe? Close to 3. My orders are clear. I will not speak to him. Even if asked a question, I will not say a word. But he won't ask me any questions. He knows the rules too. We have paid him a tremendous amount of money. He will forget what he has seen. Max has told him that there are certain threats against Rosanna's life, that she needs me for protection. I wonder what is more true, that, as the doctor thinks, she needs protection from some outside threat, that my body is a blind, a duck decoy, or what Max has told me, that I am her mirror, her charm, absorbing all harm, that she needs protection from herself. What does she picture when she pictures me? What needs of hers do I fulfill? Soon, I think, I will know. When I have her face, I will know what she needs. I will be completely trusted then. They will tell me what I need to do. I cannot speak, but I can look, and even looking is overwhelming. The doctor's presence in my small room feels like an unbearable violation. He is older than Max, with a reassuringly placid air, his forehead as smooth and glossy as a frozen lake. Everything about him is icy white and still. His hair, his skin, his suit. He nods politely when he sees me, letting his eyes slide slick over my body with professional detachment. Please, he says, remove your clothes. I look to Max, who nods, his face tight. This makes me feel uncomfortable, too. Somehow I find this reassuring, though. I keep my eyes on him, pretending the doctor isn't here. Excuse me. Concentrating on our common goal. I take off my clothes. This time, Max doesn't look away. Neither does the doctor. I look at them, but they don't look back. Even Max doesn't meet my eyes. To him, right now, I am an imperfect object, nothing more. They walk around me in tight circles, discussing. You're right, the doctor says. The resemblance is uncanny. Where did your team manage to find her? Oh, says Max, we have our ways. The doctor nods. And a mute, he says. Extraordinary. Not that this is the strangest thing I've seen in my line of work. Not the strangest by far. Max catches his eyes, giving me a conspiratorial little smile. Not strange, he says. Lucky. The doctor has a pen, and he uses it to make little marks all over my body, dotted lines like borders on a map. I'm glad that he uses a pen. It spares me the indignity of his fingers. We could taper her jaw, says the doctor. Shave a little bit of bone off here and here. He marks the lines on my face, making the same shapes I do every morning with my contouring makeup. I can feel the marker catch and snag on my loose skin. Nothing drastic, the doctor says. Maybe narrow the bridge of her nose a little, shave off the slight bump. He makes 2 lines, here and here. I stand as still as I can, look past them. The cheekbones are a little flat, says Max. And I think her breasts are too large, uneven. Good eye, says the doctor. Both are easy to fix. A little Botox wouldn't be a bad idea. Best to get these things started when they're still young. Preventative measures, you know. I cannot eat for 6 hours before the surgery. But it feels like my stomach has shrunk in Max's absence, growing small and hard, and I find that I do not mind. I drink sweet things, water, tea. Max sits up with me for all 6 hours. He reads to me as much as I want him to, books Rosanna has lent me. My favorite is a folk tale I make him read 3 times over. A girl guides herself out of a dark wood by the firelight of a magic skull, burning her enemies to ashes with the bright glare of its gaze. At the end of the story, the girl returns safely to a faraway city. She weaves beautiful cloth with her flame-scarred hands. She tells no one what happened to her, how she got her scars. Max sits beside the bed and strokes my hand, gentle. I do not move away or flinch. He is the one to hold the mask over my face as the doctor watches. He holds my hand. He tells me to breathe in and count down from 10. I don't feel drowsy at all. It's not working, I think. I wake up in the dark in a stranger's body. My face feels puffy and swollen. My breasts are tender, hollow, as though I've been nursing some infernal being who has sucked me dry. My body lists like a sinking ship, woozy with anesthesia and helpless emptiness, sick with longing and hunger and loss. I ache. I can't breathe through my nose. The nostrils are stopped up thick with cotton wads. Blood drains down my throat when I tilt my head. My mouth feels impossibly dry, lips cracked as they crack in winter, back when I lived through winters before. Someone, Max, has propped me up on a stack of pillows, left a carafe of water and a small bowl of something that looks like porridge on the bedside table. The room is dark. I am alone. And then I see them, sitting on the windowsill, their heavy heads drooping like the heads of a sleeping animal, a narrow planter full of white Miltonia orchids. Rosanna's favorite flower. Rosanna has been here while I slept. Maybe she's still here now, on her way out the door, making her way silently down the hall. I have to see her. I drag myself out of bed, legs shaking like the legs of a baby deer, that precious, that vulnerable, new. I feel I am in a quiet house in the eye of a storm, there around me heavy and still, in the few long moments before the sky breaks open and the wind sucks down the walls. I sway. I stumble. I right myself and walk to the door, turning the knob like I'm in a dream, sleepwalking. As in a dream, it opens. I say it out loud to myself just to be sure. The door is unlocked. In the quiet, my whisper cracks the air like a whip. My jaw aches. I find myself standing in the open mouth of the doorway like a woman on the edge of a skyscraper, preparing herself to leap. My body is heavy and strange, with new aches all over, pumped full of fluid. I watch the world outside swim into existence through my drug-fueled gaze. I step over the threshold towards the pole of Rosanna, the night. The street outside is empty but for the dead palm fronds that litter the road. Street lights extinguished, everything dark. I feel the wind cutting through with my tight layer of bandages, the light, painful pressure of air on my new bruised skin. Santa Ana, Max had said before, when the wind blew all night and gave me strange dreams. The air crackles with a fierce electricity that makes the fine hairs on my arms stand on end. The silk of my thin nightgown spark with static. I feel alive with it, dangerous. I'm something strange and raw and new, newborn. I'm something that has never been before in this world or any other. I cross the street to an empty lot where the ground drops away to nothing, the city spread out below. There are houses on either side of me, clinging to the cliff like great birds poised before flight, perched, like I am, on the edge of everything. I stand on the curb and look down over the city, the darkness spilling out from the foot of the mountain like the hem of a black dress. Darkness for miles, and then light again, sparkling to the vague shapes of islands in the far darkness of the sea. I look to the bruised purple sky for stars. I feel the bruised tenderness of my stranger's body. I scream and I scream and I scream into the wind until my new face cracks with strain. I left my water upstairs.
You don't want to read longer than that. So I just wanted to catch a few of you up who might not have read the flap copy or the introduction to the book, which is Emily's novel is about a young woman who's plucked out of obscurity in a small town in the Midwest or somewhere in America, and a mysterious man named Max asks her to come to LA and impersonate a famous actress who has gone into hiding named Rosanna. So that's what's going on there is she's holed away in an apartment and sort of becoming this actress who's sort of hidden from view. So before you started to read, you kind of stole my opening line, which is like, I read this as a short story, which I literally remember nothing about except sitting over in that cafe and kind of being a little confused, not gonna lie. But I do read a lot of stuff. So, but this book is about obsession, and it's about, Max's obsession with Rosanna, and the character, the narrator, doesn't have a name, and I cannot tell you how difficult it is going to be to discuss a book with a character who doesn't have a name. But and
like Rosanna too. Or
yeah, exactly. So the narrator, or the protagonist. So it's a book about their mutual obsession. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your obsession, because I know when I first met you, you were writing a book about your aunts in France in the 30s or something.
It's a very different book.
Yeah, a very different book, and you worked with that, and I know you wrote that sometime in grad school and your various iterations of grad school. But this story seemed to have occupied you for a really long period of time, and I was kind of shocked that this was the book you wrote. So how did the process go of taking that short story as what you used as a grad school application and then turning it into a novel?
Yeah, it's actually, this story, it was even weirder than that. It started out as a piece of flash fiction. So, I know, this is not knowing when to stop. About, I guess, right before I read this, really, about 3 or 4 years ago, some friends and I decided to do this experiment where we were going to write a piece of flash fiction every single day and send it to each other. Michelle Myers, who I think is somewhere here, there she is, hello.
Hi,
and our friend Ishmael, who is not here because he does not live here. And we were going to do this every day. And, of course, we gave up after like a week, yes, as you do. But I wrote this tiny little thing that was about this woman going to a party. And have you ever had to go to a party that you didn't want to go to, and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to this party? So she's at the party. Someone has hired her. I know, she loves parties. She's at a party, and you discover that someone else has hired her to go to this party for them that they didn't want to go to. And then she sort of realizes, oh wait, everyone else at this party has also been hired to go to this party that no one wanted to go to. So I don't know, I started thinking more and more about that, about how fragmented the nature of self is, and how there are these versions of ourselves that we send out into the world to go to the party that we don't want to go to meet maybe a relative that we have a difficult relationship, to go to a job interview. There's all these different versions of yourself that you're sending out. And so I got really interested in the idea of making that dynamic literal, you know, and exploring that.
And so, I mean, obviously you must have written a whole bunch of other things in the time that you were, studying the art of fiction. But this story just stayed with you the whole time?
Yeah, and I think that I just kept trying to figure out a way to make it work as a story, and I couldn't. So it just got longer and longer and longer, and it was like outlined on my bedroom wall like a serial killer for a really long time. So that was not a good look, but
Like you were the serial killer.
I was the serial killer in the scenario. Yes,
I think I read a different book. So, I mean, I am not from Los Angeles. I am from Brooklyn. I had the misfortune to write a book about LA and have to defend it all the time, like why I was allowed to do this. But you're from LA, and you wrote a book about LA that is written from a stranger's point of view, which is a really odd choice for someone who knows, not a bad choice. I'm just really intrigued by this idea to write about the thing you know really well from the perspective of someone who doesn't know it. So how did, was that conscious, or where did that come from? Because I would like to write about LA like I know what I'm talking about.
See, I feel like that's such an interesting perspective, because for me, I think everyone is a stranger in Los Angeles, because the city, and I love Los Angeles. Anyone can tell you this is like a place that is so close to my heart. And if you read the book, you'll see there's so much of the city in there, so many real places that have been transformed and so many real things. But it's so vast. It's almost unknowably vast. More people live in LA County than in all of Australia, is something I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds true. It's really, really big.
I'm so gonna Google that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just dying to know.
You can drive for hours in any direction, and it's all LA. And so we all find our little kind of amoeba section where we can spread out and we get to know our neighborhoods really well and the people around us. But it's just all of these strange cities coming into contact with each other. That's something I love about it.
It's interesting you said that this is a novel where lots of Los Angeles is transformed. I felt oddly that this was an incredibly, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, I felt this was an incredibly claustrophobic novel where we rarely went outside and saw Los Angeles. So I felt like you did this weird, reverse engineering of LA, which is this, as you just described, this giant expansive place. We've all flown into LA. It's giant and it's spreading out, and there's a million things, and I don't even understand what's going on. Is Culver City part of LA? Where do I live? I live somewhere in the middle of the city in this neighborhood that's has 8 names. But your book is sort of the anti-LA novel, where it doesn't try to describe Los Angeles at all. It's very much stuck in this apartment. So I think it's funny that you said that it's this reimagining of LA, where I just think it's sort of turning Los Angeles into a black hole.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't Los Angeles a black hole, right?
I don't know. I'm not from here. I'm not going to say that. I will get killed if I say that.
Well, I think a black hole is only a portal to another universe, right? And so, in that sense, I think that, like I said, we all have these very prescribed versions of LA that are very, very small and very limited, but then there are these secret connections that spread through these networks of people, everybody here. Hi, I love you all. Thank you. I know most of you, and some of you I don't. Thank you for being here, even though I don't know you.
Especially the ones you don't know. Thank them.
Exactly. But I feel that sense of claustrophobia and isolation is a really big part of living in any city, but especially Los Angeles, because you can really be alone all the time if you want to. I mean,
it is weird.
Yeah,
when I
your
first
house or your car or whatever it is.
When I first moved here, I lived in Echo Park, and I lived on top of this hill, and you could go. It's weird. You're in the middle of the city, but you could go for 5 days without seeing another person.
Yeah, and if somebody was, I guess you could just not really leave your house, but even if you walk around on the street, 9 times out of 10 you're the only person.
You don't have neighbors,
there,
it's just such a interesting view of the city you grew up in, which is so and I know your father works in film and all this stuff, and there's this as an outsider you think, well, that's just so exciting and dynamic, but the novel is this sort of very sort of, it's like a folie à deux between Max and Rosanna, and it's Rosanna. I'm sorry, am I saying
Rosanna?
Rosanna? Okay.
Rosanna.
I don't know.
It's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Okay, well, it's funny, when I first came to LA, I was visiting a friend, and he lived across the street, and I didn't know this until recently, and I stayed in his apartment. And when I read your book, I imagine it's like that sort of very hot LA building across the
Those
brick
like
building.
Moorish apartment
Yeah,
buildings.
right there. And when I read this book, I'm like, that's so the apartment, although I know it's
so
set
funny
in the hills.
because my mom said the same thing about an apartment that she knows in the Hollywood Hills that was a little bit closer to being the real place. That I was like, maybe you've walked by it. Do you guys know the Crotona apartment buildings in the Hollywood Hills? Yeah. So it was sort of inspired by that and all those weird Moorish apartment buildings that are like scattered through these like really ritzy neighborhoods. And there's this rumor that when they were built, the reason that they're out there is that there were secret tunnels connecting them to the homes of celebrities, and that's where they put like the dirty little secrets or whatever. They keep them in these apartment buildings. And I thought that was such a crazy idea that you could be, like in love with this celebrity or whatever, and you'd be in this tiny little space.
Yeah, didn't gangsters have like things where they could like pop into different like,
yeah,
bars?
absolutely. And
the
there's
cars
still there's all those underground tunnels in downtown that you can
Right,
still
that's
access.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, they're all over.
It's funny that you said that about your mom trying to say like imagining the apartment was somewhere she sort of recognized, because one of the things I love about this book is we know nothing about these characters. And in order to write a book in which you know nothing about the characters, I would suggest the author knows a tremendous amount that she's hiding. We can talk about that in a second. I should hope you do, but
Well, I can't tell.
this is like the
everybody,
writer
can
in me,
I?
the writing teacher in me is like, I hope you really know what Max's name is, or his last name. But the genius of this book is that everything and everyone is a cipher, and you're just like Max is filling the fake Rosanna, the narrator, with his own ideas, and then she starts to inflate him with her ideas. And like in the world you've created, your mother sees, this apartment building, I see that apartment building. There's this lack of specificity which allows us to sort of inhabit this world. Was that sort of an intention?
Yeah, that's something I'm very, very, very interested in, is the idea of space in fiction and just in general in creative works. I mean, I always think of that really famous like Zen koan about emptiness being the source of form, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like the hole at the center of the circle that makes it a wheel, and there's this space at the inside of the jar that makes it a jar. And I think that like by creating this space for the reader to sort of flow into, that to me is such an interesting project, because then the act of reading becomes an act of collaboration. And that's the kind of reader I am, so I'm making you guys do a little more work.
I mean, and at the risk of like beating a well-worn cliche to death, what better example than like an actress who is everything to everybody but nothing specific to herself.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
at the center of this book, you've kind of picked the perfect vessel or jar for this. Is I gotta ask, did you have a specific actress in mind? I'm gonna ask like the dumb questions.
I know.
Does everyone ask that?
No, actually, I haven't had that before. I should probably think of like a fake person, so maybe I'll take suggestions and be like, oh yeah, it was this person.
What I kind of liked about Rosanna, whatever, is that she's sort of at that moment in the career that I'm sort of interested in, where an actress decides not to act anymore.
She's like a melange for sure.
But also like decides to like Gwyneth Paltrow to like do products, like no longer acting, but like has gone into become a business, and like that's why it's sort
maybe
of
she's like a little bit of a trashier Gwyneth, like the Walmart Gwyneth Paltrow.
I was like reading the whole book. Yeah, well, I mean
her makeup's like in the drugstore, so she's not.
Hey,
she's not gonna be.
We all gotta make a buck.
Listen, I agree.
But I like this idea because I was sort of very worried as the book went on, because it's my job to worry about plot. Like, oh my god, like if she was gonna have to act, and I was like, is she gonna be like forced to be in a movie? Like this can't happen. But it's like that sort of moment where her definition as an actress like ceases to be, and she's sort of become this like amalgamation of like products and like appearances.
Yeah, and then it's almost like by acting, she would sort of undermine her creation of this reality. It's almost like she's this extreme method. There is this moment later in the book where she has an interview, and she's coached and she's really prepped, and she goes in the interview thinking, okay, this is what this person needs to say, this is the plan. And when she's trying to do that, it comes off as like really wooded and false, and she almost gets caught. But maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. I'm not going to tell you. I mean, you can probably guess. But
yeah, I like that interview because also like she interviews the interviewer. Like it's like this moment of like, she's no longer Rosanna. She has this kind of idea of an individual. It's like one of the two moments of individuality that sort of really jumps out.
Yeah, it's like accessing this pure world of form where this person exists.
It's really difficult to talk about a book in which you have these two characters. Not that it's just hard to sort of describe without giving too much away, but where you have two characters who we know nothing about. Like, Max doesn't have a last name. He is sort of comes out of nowhere, descends in this small movie theater, and which you described so brilliantly. I was reminded of the Sticky movie theater in Brooklyn where I grew up.
I was thinking of the New Beverly. We all know that's Sticky. Like,
oh my God, it's so dark in there.
It's very
There's
dark.
like no lights
It's
in Beverly.
Everything is like very soft.
Yeah.
If
it's sticky,
alarming.
it's my fault for spilling things because I can't see.
Fair enough.
And we realize it's one of those tricks that you pull really well. Is like, we know nothing about Max, but we've sort of trusted him because we want the story to get going.
Yeah.
Like, let her follow this guy. But
and I think she's in the same position. If somebody shows up and they're like, "Hey, what's up? Your life sucks. Let me help you and give you a lot of money." You're gonna be like, "I'm not gonna ask too many questions about that."
Now, one thing that I discovered as I write is I have an idea and then I write about it and then I realize I know more and more about my characters and I know what they would do. I'm guessing that might have happened to you, but you don't reveal anything about these people.
Yeah.
So how much do you know, about Max?
I think a lot, and I think that there were definitely drafts of this book where a lot of that was just him coming out and being like, "Let me tell you about my drama," which just was not so great. Yeah. It's like, "Hello, let me tell you about my horrible childhood," or whatever, which is a great way to bond in real life, but in fiction maybe gives too much away. And that's something that I really liked about Max is that he does have this enormous sadness. He's an incredibly sad person, and this figure of Rosanna, this person has almost become like his guiding light. And when she disappears from his life, he has to recreate her, or else he's going to be destroyed.
I think you hit it so well that there was something up with him. I mean, we were talking about it, but there's this moment in the middle of the book where someone, says to fake Rosanna, just raises an eyebrow at Max's mention, and I was like, oh, I missed it entirely. I really thought this was, going one way and it's going another way. Did you know that from the beginning that Max wasn't entirely on the level? Sorry guys. Max is not entirely on the level.
I mean, I think you could probably guess.
I think I'm a terrible reader. I was like, what's going to happen? Maybe, I think he's trying to do the right thing here,
Well, I think in a sense that he is, and I think that he very much thinks of himself as a good person.
Right.
I think that he, like I said, he's trying to recreate this dynamic that's intensely healthy and familiar to him in the way that I think a lot of us, growing comfortable with an unhealthy dynamic, will seek to recreate it over and over and over again so that we can finally, get it right this time, And I think he thinks what he's doing is an act of heroism in a way. He's saving her by recreating her.
I think it's an act of personal,
yes,
he's saving himself.
Yeah.
And how much do you know about her going forward? Did you know about her before the book started? The one who's in the movie theater.
There's too many of them. I know. It's like a hall of mirrors. It's like the shooting the gun at the.
The woman who's in the movie, the character. There's one. There's only one of her, by the way.
Yeah,
it's not that confusing.
Don't worry, you will not be confused. Yeah, I think it was a kind of similar thing. I think that what I knew about her was a lot more explicit and explicitly tragic in a way that maybe is not as interesting because I think
we get a few clues.
Yeah, and definitely I think by the end of the book you find out some pretty bad things have happened to this poor lady, but but not like not traumatizing.
You don't sort of harp on it.
Yeah, I mean in the same way that, like I said, trauma tends to kind of poke up from underneath the surface, and all we really see is the fin of the shark. We don't see this enormous beast, right? It's just a little peek of it.
Because sometimes I'm entirely incapable of original thought. I read a lot of reviews of books that I'm going to talk to people about just to see what other people think.
That makes one of us. I'm way too scared to
Oh,
read.
no, I mean, not review, but, I just want to know, and it's interesting that many people have mentioned different works of literature and movies that they thought you had drawn from, or, I mean, not explicitly copied, but, things that were inspirational. I mean, for me, I just thought it was, you, but, was there any, was there anything that in, either literature or film that was a direct inspiration for?
It's interesting because I think maybe not right off the bat, but I think in revision, when you're moving through something, you begin to see there really are some echoes of, for example, Vertigo, something that gets brought up a lot. And that is a movie that, even though I wasn't consciously thinking about it when I was writing, had a tremendous impact on me. The first half of that film, where Kim Novak is transforming into this sort of dead woman, was the act of love. Is just God, it's one of the most unsettling things I've ever seen.
And that moment where she decides to to become her when she's counting the rings in the tree, you sort of have that moment in here where this is what, there's a few interesting moments here where she's sort of, it's so hard to do this well where you're playing on both sides of the fence, where she's her, unnamed actress, an unnamed narrator is herself, and then she's Rosanna. And there's a few moments where it gets confused.
Yeah.
But it's so well touched off where you always sort of pull it back. But that is that Kim Novak moment where she's like, this is where I was born and this is where I died. And she's like, in the sequoias or the redwoods.
Yeah,
is it hard to like keep track of who is who? Or
No, not really. Because I think she's always both. Do you know what I mean? I
Oh,
think,
really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I
mean,
just
want to tell you to
there's
read
so
it.
many ways to read a book.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. Yeah.
And neither of them are wrong. I thought she was always herself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she is always herself, but I think she wants so badly to be this other person. There's this really profound act of ego identification and like a pulling in or calling upon this person's powers. It's almost like a kind of channeling, you know?
I felt so bad for her when she was like, and Rosanna's gonna come and I'm gonna meet her. I'm like, lady, you have another thing coming. Like, that was just for me the highest moment of delusion. I'm like, I don't think this is gonna happen. Were you ever tempted to bring the two of them together?
Absolutely,
Like,
yeah.
like a Dostoevsky style?
100%. And then I just thought it was going to devolve into that Karl Marx, like the mirror routine.
We
It's
just
like
got so
Karl Marx instead of
pretentious with
Groucho
this.
Marx. Oh my god. You guys,
It's a
I
really
said,
fun book,
Karl Marx
Marx.
instead of Groucho Marx. No, I was picturing like Groucho Marx in front of the door
Yeah.
being like, ugh, like
Yeah.
that's not going to be good.
I was like, it's so fun to read a book where you're sort of hoping certain things happen. I was like, I really want to see that, but it would also be really bad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's definitely the temptation. I think that you can veer really, really close to the explicit, but you can't ever put your hand entirely in the fire, you know?
Yeah. Huh.
But I mean, just to return to your early questions about inspiration, I think
yeah.
probably the text that most directly inspired it is this book that I'm completely obsessed with called The Invention of Morale, which probably I've made a lot of you read. It's really good. And it's this book about this man that's basically on this island, and he's kind of looking into the past of the island and dreaming about accessing it, but he can't really. And that is something I was thinking about a lot when I was writing this book, not necessarily navigating this physical space, but navigating this space of desire, of wanting so badly to have another life that you can almost make it happen for yourself. You know?
Were you ever tempted to make it happen?
What do you mean?
Like, to make this all work out? I was kind of hoping it worked out.
Yes, of course, because, it's impossible not to get attached to your characters, you know? Like, when I write, I feel a tremendous obligation to them, you know? And I really feel like they are in some way real and that I owe them happiness, you know? Not that I've created them, but
They
that I
owe
can,
you
look into them.
happiness. They owe you happiness.
And they've given it to me, I suppose. You're all here.
Yeah,
right?
it's,
So-
it's really hard to write a book with two people in it because you get so sort of beholden to both of them, especially two people who are so, like, hollow at core.
Yeah, but I think that is also what draws them to each other, is that they both have this profound lack, and they each think that the other one can fill it. And who among us has not either seen or experienced that dynamic in our own life when there's something inside us that we need, and we turn to another, hoping that they can provide it? And of course, that's an impossible quest, you know?
They certainly try.
They
in,
try.
like, an
They do.
epic
God
scale.
love them.
One thing
Well, so do we all, right?
Yeah. I'm getting that plastic surgery tomorrow. One thing I really liked is, though this is it is a book of ideas. It's not like super, not a ton happens, but everything that happens is very interesting and it's really well thought out. And, because there's so few there's a few very big moves, so there's so much weight put on them. You're very excited for these things to happen. So like every move that they make together, Max and fake Rosanna, it's like, oh my God, is she gonna leave the house? Like you put so much pressure on these moments, and it's sort of like almost like a pressure cooker, but you sort of pop that balloon with these really cool specific details about LA stuff, like some stuff you read, like this, the spicy tuna roll, and like I know that's such a dumb example, but there's these moments of like levity of the sort of like obsessive stuff they do that must have been super fun.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the physical details of this world is something that I'm so interested in exploring, and I really loved the idea of creating yourself not only through this act of performance, but also through like acquisition, through what you eat, what you wear, whatever. And that's something that is, I think, fairly common. Obviously, we all have this ideal version of ourselves that we're trying to enact through our external performance, but like to have that be so literal, to think maybe I can literally change the physical composition of my body by eating exactly what this person would eat and wearing their clothes and smelling like them, and maybe I can transform into them by commanding these small knowable details.
It's funny because I had a writing residency at the house of the poet James Merrill for a long time, and his house was a museum. And there's always this sort of existential question, like, at what, like, are they going to fix the toilet? Because they couldn't really fix the toilet or the bed because, it wouldn't be his toilet or bed. So they couldn't put a new toilet in or a new bed. We had to fix Jimmy Merrill's toilet or bed. And finally the plumber came. He's like, I have taken so many parts out of this toilet that nothing original remains, but we're going to keep going with the idea that this is James Merrill's toilet. I'm like, I don't think he would care. But, sort of, your character is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, at what point are you no longer, yourself?
Well, I mean, we do that in our own bodies, right? Like, if you think about cellular death and what is, every 7 years or something, you're, a totally different guy. So, who's to say that she isn't?
Yeah, no, I was,
really.
Yeah, maybe she really is Rosanna.
Perhaps she is. Maybe she made it happen for herself. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's turn it. So this is your home crowd, and I know you. I'm sure they have more questions than I do, and why don't you guys ask some questions?
Yeah, ask me some questions. Thanks.
I mean, I have a million more, but
That's true.
That's okay. That's fine. That usually works that way.
General.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Carrick.
I just wanted to bring up one of the things, a real life example that I thought was a J.T. Leroy
Oh, yeah.
Story, and just wondered if that had come into your thoughts.
Oh, that's an amazing real life example, definitely. And I think that one is so interesting because it's this act of mirroring and wish fulfillment, but to transform yourself into someone that's so damaged, and it's almost like the opposite, to come from someone that was in a relative position of power and security, and then to transform yourself into someone immensely vulnerable to solicit aid. So I think that's a really, really interesting question, and I think the morality there is a lot fuzzier, because if you're transforming yourself into someone with more power, obviously, then that's an act of aspiration. But what is it? Is it? I guess it's appropriation to transform yourself into someone with less power, and I think that's something that is really interesting. The ethics of transformation and the ethics of pretending. Yeah, that's a really good question.
And a great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering, can you tell us a bit about your process of writing? For example, how you got the initial germ of an idea for this particular piece, and then how do you do it? How do you do it day by day? Do you have a schedule?
That's a really good question.
Can everyone in the back hear the question? Questions about process and whether Emily has a schedule and writing.
Yeah, I'm actually really controlling about my schedule, I think. Normally what I do is I wake up in the morning and I read in bed for as long as I can, which is great. And then I try to write at least 1,000 words before I do anything else, every day. That's my goal. And sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't do it. But just to have that raw material flowing through constantly is really great. And when I'm writing, I really think of it as almost an act of channeling. I think a lot about the infinite nature of the universe, right? And how everything that can happen is happening right now. And so I just sit down, and to take the pressure off myself, I think, okay, I'm just going to write what's happening somewhere else, and I try to find out what that is. But yeah, in terms of how the idea, I think that it really came from the idea of social anxiety and kind of externalizing yourself as a way to cope with feelings of being less than, or feelings of being nervous in a particular situation that we've all, I think, dealt with, right? But then to take that to an extreme and imagine what it would be like if you really could just divest yourself of all of your obligations and make someone else do them and just stay at home and, watch television or whatever, which is very tempting, of course. Anybody else?
If I understand correctly, this was a short, you had sort of formed a short story that you ended up expanding into a novel.
Bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I was wondering how you do that, because I would imagine the short story does have the bones of the story. How did you expand it by, complicating the narrative and putting in obstacles? And I'm just wondering if
That's another really good question. I think it's the Big Bang. I didn't think I was going to turn it into a novel. I was just okay, it just needs to be a longer story. You know what I mean? I was okay, definitely this needs to happen. And then this needs to, oh wait, but then what about this? And then so gradually I was wait, this is I think an early draft of this is something 500 pages. It's too much. Just kept getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And then at that point I was okay, I'm clearly writing a novel and I need to get this under control.
You only figured out at 500 pages.
I'm a slow learner. What can I say?
The story is very long.
I'm a little obtuse. But yeah. And then
But it is a really interesting question. I sort of have the same question too, because a short story, I can't write short stories. Like I've written one.
I think that's what I've learned too, is that I also cannot write short
Oh
stories.
well, clearly, if you wrote a
yeah,
500-page short
exactly.
story, yeah, it is a different structure, and there's like this control in a short story.
Yeah.
But I do see the short story in this book. I
That's
see how this
interesting.
story that it not shouldn't be, but I can see how you could do this as a short story, and I think it's a really interesting exercise to sort of see, there's a few moves that could make it a short story that you would lose a lot of 300 pages of
Yeah.
good stuff. But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe someone else could have made it into a really good short story, but my brain is not that good at that. So. Yeah. Anyone else? Hi. Totally, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I'm just glad that you relate to that. Killian and I have made up a lot of stories together over the years, mostly about a very mischievous cat named Mr. Pickles, who I tried to work into the story, but he didn't quite
Be an
fit.
awesome life coach too.
No, you don't. You don't want to hear what Mr. Pickles has to say. He'll tell you. But
You don't
yeah.
like your life, start a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just start it over. But of course, I think that we all have these moments of feeling so frustrated because it really is hard to be a person, isn't it? It's so hard. It's so hard. You
But
have to
what
get
I-
up every day and you have to do stuff and you have to be in the world and it's very tiring. And
But what I sort of like about your narrator is that she doesn't really have a hell of a lot of reason for doing what she does. And I think that if you spent a lot of time up front explaining her motivation, it would ruin the book. Like, she, you don't really have to twist her arm. It's not like something so awful is happening to her. It's not like she's like in debt or on the run. She just does it. And I think to belabor that issue would call into question a lot of the motivation of the book. Like, she just sort of goes along with this, and I think that's sort of really important, because if you were to interrogate her motivation, then the whole thing would come crumbling down, because we don't need to know why she's doing it.
absolutely. And I think that she is someone who's very rudderless. And when I started writing this book, when I guess wrote this short story that turned into this book, I was like 23 and I just moved back to LA from Vietnam, and I was like, what the F am I doing? I'm not going to swear, but like, what's going on? I'm a baby, like we all remember this time in your life when you're like, oh my God, how do I be a person? How do I figure it out? And I think maybe if somebody had came in and was like, here is your life. This is what you do. This is how you be a successful person. Here's a bunch of money. I'd be like, great, I'm done. So I think it is very alluring in that way,
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of that compromise of like, here's your life, but you can't live it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your life, but it belongs to somebody else. It's very sad. Right. Oh. Perfect.
At least it's not in 3 parts.
I think that's really, really interesting. I think it's a little bit more of the former. Like, I think she was taking the process of physical transformation so seriously that, of course, her internal landscape would also change. And I think this is almost something like when we embark on a process of self-improvement, like however extreme, maybe changing our diet or getting a haircut or whatever, it usually accompanies an emotional shift, right? Like there's the famous, like, you break up with somebody and you cut your hair kind of a thing, or like your New Year's resolution is to get in shape, not because you just want to get in shape, but also because you're going to be that kind of person. You're going to be the strong person, and you're going to get up at 5 in the morning and run around the reservoir or whatever. I'm not saying I said I was going to do that this year and didn't do it. But I do think that these things are so closely interlaced. And I think that the separation of body and mind is really illusory, I agree with you on that. But yeah. What do you think?
Well, this book, obviously, took you a long time to not to write, but to sort of articulate, from the flash fiction to the short story to whatever happened while you were studying the art of fiction to this book. I'm going to ask
You're
the
gonna
classic
choose your
wrap-up
own
question.
adventure.
I'm just going to, what are you working on now?
Oh my God, you guys! I'm really
I was trying to
excited.
deflect from that fact.
No, I
was
love
coming.
it. I'm working on something else that I tried to write another short story. I finished this. I was like, great. Now I'm gonna write a short story, and it's also I think the last draft was like 600 pages, so that didn't work. And it's like a spooky existential horror story about this plague that causes women to lose the ability to speak. And this young couple buys an abandoned summer camp in the Angeles National Forest to try to escape it, and it's not good, you guys. It does not go well for them. So
That sounds awesome.
keep your eyes peeled.
Okay, unless you guys have any more questions, I'm sure Emily will sign all of the books you're going to buy. Oh, wait, there's one more question.
Oh yeah.
I would like to get some insight into the two of yours relationship as far as, the guidance in this novel. Was it before the story developed that you provided guidance? Was it through?
I never worked on this novel. I just read their shorts. I worked on this other novel that Emily, I don't know what happened to that. I loved it.
Actually, that's a funny story. My car got broken into and my laptop got stolen.
Oh.
And I hadn't backed it up anywhere, so I thought it was gone. And then
That's not a funny story.
no, it is. Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah, it's a great
About
story
a year
for you.
No, there's a happy ending. About a year later, I got a Facebook message in my like alternate Facebook inbox. You know, you have that when you never check, and there's like a bunch of creeps or whatever. But it was from this guy, and he was like, "Hi, I live in Colombia. I bought a laptop at a flea market, and I found your novel. And I'm a poet, and I know how important this is. Do you want it back?" And I was like, "I'm good."
You didn't want it back?
I don't want it. But you know what? I found out after I told the story to someone else is that my loving partner, Hari, had a copy of it the whole time. So it's still there. So maybe someday I will go back to it. You
That's a
never know.
great story.
Thank you all for being here. I love you all very, very much. Even if I don't know you, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and also, if you buy the book, I think they give you this nail polish.
Oh, yeah.
There's Rosanna nail polish in the real world, too, you guys. Not in the drugstore. So.
And let's thank Ivy. Let's thank her. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Emily. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
We're very happy to have you.
Did
very,
I tell
very
you that
happy.
I used to fund my high school literary magazine by holding a bake sale out front of Skylight?
All right.
So thank
Come
you
full
for that
circle.
too. Yeah.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books author reading series. Don't forget, you can listen to this and all of our other great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Thanks again for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.